Ever wondered if ancient idolatry was anything like a celestial baking competition? Imagine the scene: the heavens as the grand stage, deities donning their aprons, each eager to whip up the most tempting of treats. Well, in a sense, it was a little like that. But instead of delectable delicacies, the people of Judah were serving up a banquet of idolatry, as we find in the biblical book of Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 18. In this video, we'll blend a dash of humor with some serious theological exploration to unpack this intriguing verse. We'll be delving into the themes of idolatry, judgment, and the broader implications on eschatology. That's right, we're talking about the end times. So, are you ready to roll up your sleeves, don your metaphorical aprons, and dive into this divine bake-off? Let's dive into Jeremiah 7:18 and find out. Imagine an ancient baking show, but instead of bread and pastries, they're cooking up trouble with God. Picture this: the people of Judah, gathered in their homes, kneading dough and shaping it into cakes. It sounds innocent enough, right? But here's the kicker. These weren't your run-of-the-mill sweet treats. Oh no, these cakes were made in the image of the Queen of Heaven, a foreign deity. Now let's bring it back to our baking show analogy. Imagine our modern-day contestants whipping up a batch of cookies, but instead of the usual chocolate chips or raisins, they're adding a dash of idolatry into the mix. Sounds a bit off-putting, doesn't it? But this wasn't just an individual act of rebellion. It was a full-blown family affair. Men, women, and children were all involved, each playing their part in this idolatrous bake-off. This was no simple act of disobedience. It was a communal defiance of God's laws, a recipe for disaster, if you will. In our imaginary baking competition, the judges would probably be horrified. But the judge in this scenario was God himself, and his reaction was far from amused. He saw an act of betrayal, a rejection of his covenant, and a blatant disregard for his commandments. Now, the people of Judah weren't just baking these cakes for fun. There was a purpose behind their actions. They were offering them up as a form of worship to this foreign deity, a direct violation of the first commandment: "You shall have no other gods before me." In the context of our baking competition, this would be like the contestants serving up their dishes to the opposing team's judges. It's a surefire way to get disqualified, right? But for the people of Judah, the stakes were much higher. They weren't just facing disqualification from a competition, they were provoking God's anger and inviting his judgment. God's not a fan of this bake-off. Let's find out why. Idolatry isn't just a slap on the wrist offense. It's a heavyweight in the celestial courtroom. When we delve into the repercussions of idolatry, we find ourselves in a labyrinth of theological implications, a maze that is as fascinating as it is foreboding. Imagine, if you will, a set of celestial scales, perfectly balanced, representing the divine justice system. On one side, we have the weight of human actions, and on the other, the response of the divine. The scales are in equilibrium, as long as humanity treads the path of righteousness. But what happens when we veer off this path? When we, much like the people of Judah in Jeremiah's time, start to pile up the weight of idolatry on our side of the scale, the balance is disrupted, and the scales tip, setting off a chain reaction in the celestial courtroom. The divine response, as we see in Jeremiah 7:18, is a righteous anger, a divine judgment that is as severe as the offense. Communal and familial sin, like idolatry, doesn't just tip the scales, it topples them. It's like throwing a bowling ball on a teeter-totter. It's not going to end well. The weight of such transgressions is so great that it has repercussions beyond the immediate, impacting generations to come. Theologian J.I. Packer captures this heavy reality in his book, Knowing God, where he writes, "Idolatry is the most heinous injury and affront to the true God. It is planting the flag of rebellion against the empire of the Lord." And it's not just Packer who warns us about the gravity of idolatry. Theologian and author R.C. Sproul, in his book The Holiness of God, states, "The issue of idolatry is not merely a matter of external observance, but a matter of the heart. It is the desire to substitute the Creator with creations, a desire that provokes the wrath of a holy and jealous God." These quotes underline the severity of idolatry and its consequences. They reveal a sobering truth. Our actions have weight, and when we choose the path of idolatry, we are in essence choosing to provoke a divine response that is as severe as our offense. So as we navigate our way through this theological labyrinth, let's remember that our actions, like the ingredients in a recipe, combine to create an outcome. And when the recipe calls for reverence and obedience, substituting it with idolatry is like swapping sugar for salt in a cake. It's not just a minor faux pas, it's a disastrous misstep. The scales of justice are tipping, and not in humanity's favor. Let's ponder over this. as we move to the next segment of our journey through Jeremiah 7:18, where we'll explore the themes of eschatology, the end of the world scenarios, and the coming judgment. Stay with us as we continue to unravel the divine bake-off. Imagine a cosmic clock ticking down, each tick echoing through the halls of eternity. This is the profound imagery that underpins eschatology, the study of last things or the end times. It's a subject that can make us uncomfortable, even fearful, but one that's central to understanding Jeremiah's message and indeed, the narrative arc of the Bible. Jeremiah was not just another prophet with a doom and gloom forecast. His role was dual-natured, serving as both an immediate and an eschatological herald. His warnings were not only for the people of Judah in his time, but also echoed down the corridors of history to all of humanity. In the immediate sense, Jeremiah's warnings were clear. The people of Judah had provoked God's anger with their idolatrous practices. Their communal and familial sins were leading them towards imminent judgment. But Jeremiah's message wasn't restricted to his contemporaries. His warnings also carry an eschatological dimension, a broader cosmic significance. They point to a future time when every individual, every community, every nation will be held accountable for their actions, their beliefs, their treatment of others. It's as if Jeremiah's prophecies are inscribed on the cosmic clock of eschatology, ticking down towards a final reckoning. And this is where we encounter the dramatic imagery of eschatology. Imagine the book of life being opened, each page bearing the record of our lives, our deeds and misdeeds. Picture the scales of justice, weighing our actions and intentions, our love and our indifference. But here's the thing. This vision of judgment is not meant to fill us with dread. Instead, it's meant to provoke introspection, to spur us towards transformation. It's a call to examine our lives, to reassess our values, to repair our relationships. It's an invitation to live lives of compassion, justice, and love, mindful of the impact we have on others and on the world. In the end, Jeremiah's message, the message of eschatology, is not just about judgment. It's about hope, about the possibility of change, about the potential for redemption. It's a reminder that while the cosmic clock is ticking down, it's not yet struck the final hour. There's still time for repentance, for reconciliation, for renewal. And so, as we delve deeper into the themes of idolatry, judgment, and eschatology in Jeremiah 7:18, let's bear in mind this dual nature of prophecy. Let's remember that while the consequences of our actions are real and significant, they're not the end of the story. There's always room for grace, for mercy, for love. Judgment is coming, but it's not the end of the story. What does a 2500-year-old text have to do with us today? More than you might think. As we dive into the heart of Jeremiah 7:18, we're not just exploring an ancient text, we're embarking on a journey of self-discovery, a quest for deeper understanding, and a challenge to reflect on our own actions and beliefs. Picture this. We're in the middle of a divine bake-off, where the stakes are much higher than a mere crown or trophy. Here, the contestants are not only baking bread for the Queen of Heaven, but they're also kindling anger that leads to divine judgment. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? So let's pause and ask ourselves, are there any bake-offs in our own lives? Are there things we prioritize consciously or unconsciously over our spiritual journey? Are we in any way participating in a modern-day version of this idolatrous practice? It's easy to dismiss the practices described in Jeremiah 7:18 as something confined to the annals of history. But if we peel back the layers, we might find that idolatry isn't just about bowing to statues or baking bread for deities. It's about prioritizing anything over our spiritual commitments. It's about the small, seemingly innocent choices that, over time, can lead us away from our spiritual path. And let's not forget, humor can be a potent tool for introspection. Imagine a reality TV show called Idols of the 21st Century. It wouldn't feature golden calves or stone altars. Instead, it would spotlight our obsessions with status, wealth, popularity, or even our smartphones. It's a humorous thought, but it hits close to home, doesn't it? This is not about instilling fear or guilt, but about fostering awareness and inspiring change. It's about asking ourselves tough questions and being open to the answers. Are we investing more time in scrolling through social media than in nurturing our spiritual growth? Are we more concerned about our bank balance than the state of our souls? The beauty of this introspective journey is that it's never too late to change course. Just as the people of Judah had a chance to turn away from their idolatrous practices and return to God, we too have the opportunity to reassess our priorities and realign our lives. As we wrap up this segment, let's remember that the message of Jeremiah 7:18 is not confined to a time or place. It's a timeless call to self-reflection, a challenge to scrutinize our own bake-offs, and to choose a path that leads to spiritual growth. So, what does a 2500-year-old text have to do with us today? It holds a mirror to our lives, prompting us to question, reflect, and grow. It's time to take a good look in the mirror. Hungry for more? Let's dive into the buffet of biblical knowledge. If Jeremiah 7:18 has whetted your appetite, there's a whole spread of resources for you to feast on. First off, biblical commentaries. These are like the secret recipe books of theologians, full of rich insights and interpretations. They can help you understand the context, the language, and the symbolism of biblical passages. Some classics include Matthew Henry's commentary and the Expositor's Bible commentary. Next, books on eschatology. These are like travel guides to the end times, helping you navigate through complex concepts and prophecies. Titles like The End, a complete overview of Bible prophecy and the end of days, can be a good starting point. But don't just stop at reading. Knowledge, like a good meal, is best when shared. Consider engaging in interfaith dialogues. It's like attending a potluck dinner where each guest brings a dish from their own tradition. You get to taste different perspectives, challenge your assumptions, and enrich your understanding. Plus, it's a great way to build bridges of respect and understanding. And who knows, you might just discover your new favorite dish. So, grab a plate and dive in. Let's keep the conversation going. Remember, in the pursuit of knowledge, the journey is just as important as the destination, and every bite, every morsel of wisdom, brings us closer to understanding the divine recipe that is our faith. We've journeyed through ancient times, visited a divine courtroom, and reflected on our own lives. What a trek it's been! We've danced with the absurdity of celestial baking competitions, while grappling with the profound themes of idolatry and judgment in Jeremiah 7:18. We've learned that the ancient practices of idolatry were not as far removed from our modern world as we might have initially thought. We've discovered that there's a weight to our actions, a scale of divine justice that balances the frivolous and the profound. We've also peered into the ticking clock of eschatology, exploring how Jeremiah's prophecies contain not just warnings for his contemporaries, but for future generations as well. We've looked into the mirror, asking ourselves how we can apply these ancient lessons to our modern lives. In our search for understanding, we've recommended resources and encouraged dialogue, using humor as our trusty companion to lighten the journey. We've learned that theology can be both deep and accessible, serious and entertaining. So let's continue to ponder, to question, and to laugh. Let's continue to explore the rich tapestry of theology with all its complex patterns and vibrant threads. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep laughing.